Welcome to Insight Marketing Success, the podcast where marketing knowledge meets real-world experience, from vision to execution.
Good morning. Today we have Steve Farfsing, founder of Prospective Stream. Steve, I had the opportunity to meet with you, but for our audience, tell us who you are.
Hey, good morning, Ricardo. Thanks for having me. I'm an entrepreneur. I founded a handful of companies, but Prospect Stream is my favorite. I'm a sales nerd.
Very good. So, what is your title and the education, the journey that took you to where you are today?
Yeah. So I'm founder of Prospect Stream, the CEO, Chief Product Officer, and my college degree has nothing to do with any of this. I was actually an art major, wanted to be the next Picasso, and got married and had a baby, and that woke me up. I had to make money, so I got into sales. The mechanics of selling has always been fascinating to me. I've always aspired to be better. I was a trainer for Sandler Sales for 7 years. I switched over to solution selling, Michael Bosworth's company. I've owned a outsourced sales organization. We weren't reps, we were hired guns. So if a tech company wanted to boost sales for a quarter, they'd call us. We would get on the phone. Sometimes it'd be lead generation, sometimes it'd be sales, and they weren't simple product. LexisNexis, PricewaterhouseCoopers. Worked with a lot of big companies, but that was really the my education. So before I sold out, I managed our entire operations as well as our sales, and I had almost 300 salespeople in 3 countries. I went from wanting to make pretty pictures to managing a bunch of crazy people.
Wow. So you mentioned you were in 300 people in 3 countries. What I assume one of the countries is the US. Which other country?
Our headquarters were here in Cincinnati, and then Cebu City, Philippines, and Santiago in the Dominican Republic.
Okay, fantastic. Unique places and very different places. Amazing. Okay, wonderful. So, in the process of growing that company or any of the company, tell us about the biggest marketing challenge you had and how did you solve it?
And when I was in college, I minored in marketing, and I had a marketing professor tell us that sales is part of marketing. But I think if you went to most heads of sales, they would say at best it's the opposite. But it's all about the message. It's all about clarity. My experience, having also been a marketing consultant, was getting the right message. Um, uh, I guess that's a bit of my specialty, is finding that perfect message, primarily for sales. In my experience, the companies I worked with tended marketing would provide certain information, but I'd like to have seen them get more involved in the sales message. So I just kind of picked up on what they were doing, and it's fascinating. If you just talk about the cold call, if if the message isn't perfect, you're not going anywhere. And and that's a huge challenge. Part of our business was cold calling, and uh, we might have a 3 month or 6 month engagement with a company. We had to get up to speed fast. We had to build our pipeline fast. So message was everything, to get people to pick up the phone to talk to us. And you know how we evolved our process was, reflected that need. The challenge is that we were good at what we did. We hired right, we trained right, we coached, we reported, had great oversight, but we still ran into the same problem. It's the 80-20 rule. 20% killed it every day and 80% struggled. And that's really what has taken me down the path with Prospect Stream. So you know what it is? It's the replacement of CRM. And when I was a young salesperson, I bought into CRM in 1987. I bought my first CRM. I became a power user for them. At the time, I was head of sales for a manufacturing company, and I had 27 sales reps on the CRM, and we did all kinds of things to make it work. And I consulted for Salesforce. I mean, I've been as deep into Salesforce as I am into sales. And I discovered that CRM really lets us down. It doesn't solve the main problem. And that problem is moving those 80% up. It has no impact on that. So the challenge we had was, how do we improve our 80%? And that sent me on this journey of figuring it out. And Ricardo, what it really comes down to, if you boil it down to one word, it's discipline. And
Discipline
I don't,
in everything you do. Tell me more about
yeah,
discipline.
yeah. So in sales, it's not about uh, hitting them over the head type of discipline. It's not about you got to make your 80 calls today. It's about process discipline. It's about the frame of mind. It's about how we learn. And the sales is about rhythm. It's about structure. It's about asking better questions and collecting honest data and ultimately learning. Uh, and you can see it in the mind of a salesperson. They come in Monday morning, their brains reset. All the things they learned the previous week is gone, and they're starting over again. And I'm speaking of the 80%, and this afforded me, my call centers afforded me a lot of time to analyze the problem, because it's all we did. There was no other product that we delivered. But when sales breaks, it always breaks in one of those places, and it's discipline, that the lack of discipline that breaks it. And that's where CRM lets us down, because CRM doesn't enforce any discipline. It doesn't report on any discipline. It doesn't require any discipline. It is just a static spreadsheet. And sure, some people, a very small percentage of people, work hard to make it work, and I was one of those people. And I guess in some ways, Ricardo, I felt let down when I finally realized, like the emperor had no clothes. I finally realized that, what am I doing? I'm working harder than the software is.
Yeah.
So, and you can't fake discipline with dashboards. They try to show you all this stuff, but it's smoke and mirrors.
Yes.
And
And we all learn differently. We're also, some of us are more visual than others, and we all are
yeah.
very different. But I don't disagree. Absolutely. So in the process
Mhm.
of doing all this, and obviously you grew a company to be fairly large in 3 countries, you also went through challenges, and learning experiences. Tell us about one of those learning experiences.
Yeah. Uh, One of the things that we did was, and obviously this was before the wonders of AI that we're experiencing right now. We ran an analog, which was the only choice. So the end of every day, my team would pass upwards through the organization recordings of calls that they thought would be valuable for me to listen to. And every night before I left, I got a cassette tape with 7 recordings in it because that's what we figured I could listen to on my drive home. So I listened to one particular recording, and it was just a series of mistakes, a series of, I didn't know it then, but lack of discipline. So the next morning I came in and I took this one long statement that he had made and I wrote it on an erasable board, wrote the whole thing up there, and then brought him in and we sat and we broke it down. And kind of like what you now do with a lot of AI, Gong and some of those other products, that's what they're doing. They're breaking down the things you've said and like after the fact coaching. And then I brought in other people and said, this is what you don't do. And I was trying to use it as a training exercise, and it didn't work. It really blew up in my face. People got nervous. People thought that I was going to do it to them. The whole event was bad. I was frustrated. They became frustrated, and worse yet, they were afraid. So, I learned that it's kind of like being a soccer coach. When the game starts, you're almost just a fan sitting in the stands. Yeah, you do things. I coached for a long time, but if they don't know what they're doing yet, you can't yell to them, and So it's the same way with salespeople. Uh, in a good soccer team, any sport, there are disciplines there, very precise. Or let's go into engineering or science or law or anything. There are processes that everything follows except sales. So that was one of my lessons is that if I didn't have uh, a good process in place and then practiced it and taught the discipline and then supported the discipline, then I wasn't going to solve any of those problems. And that's kind of where we're at right now with all of this new technologies. None of it is supporting a discipline. It is that, and I'm talking about those tools that record and convert it to text and do analysis on it. Those are just going to blow up in our faces because sales reps are going to feel like they're being punished. We have to do it up front. We have to give them the things that they can be successful with. We need to. It's a paradigm change that sales hasn't figured out yet. And I was fortunate enough to be in a position where it kicked me in the teeth every day, and I had to figure it out.
Right. So
Did
if
that
I
make
understood
sense?
you correctly, yeah, if I understood you correctly, this time was I mean, you wanted to encourage your salesperson, and the process that you followed was demoralizing, and it created fear into your
Yes.
salespeople. And one of the biggest things I have learned running my company is inspiration. Inspiration, when you are able to inspire people and being able to create what I call team spirit, the usual math doesn't work. Like, you can have a team of 5 outnumbering a group of 20 because they work as a team and they help each other. And
Hmm.
so inspiration is something that I have been trying to study and try to really nurture with prospects, with people. It's something that is very important to me. So in the process of doing that, obviously you got inspired to be able to change, right? You knew it had been a mistake. And what changes did you make in the process to then inspire people instead of being demoralized?
Yeah. Well, and I will only speak to sales, but salespeople are driven by success, and they look at their peers, and if a peer is having more success than them, they'll either rise to the challenge or they'll be frustrated. And that's the point in which a good manager needs to be aware and help those know which ones are going to react negatively to it. I knew, and when we would create the teams for these projects, I would make sure I mixed them up, and the managers knew who was who. But the biggest thing that I didn't have in place yet, I mean, towards the end of my career there, we started implementing a lot of these. I have 47 rules that I figured out, and we implemented as many as we could. But the main inhibitor was technology. When I could put a salesperson on the right path, and we were able to do two things. One, we were able to celebrate the small victories, and we look at outcomes from each thing you do. So you make a call and there's an outcome, and that outcome was either positive, negative, or neutral. So we can look at the positive outcomes, uh, and uh, and limit the negative outcomes. Getting a no from somebody is not a negative outcome. It's actually, we would call it a qualified no. If you got a qualified no, that was something to celebrate. That was a success because you cleared somebody out of your database that was eating up your time. It's a win.
Yes.
So it allowed us to have eyes on those positive things that went on and celebrated it. Somebody closed a deal. Honestly, that was not treated any more importantly than all the other positive outcomes that you had during a day, because the closed deal is just the culmination of stringing together many positive outcomes. Anyway, I'm going to turn into my professor self and start lecturing. Please.
Yeah, no, this is good. This is good. All right, very good. Uh, so the next question for you would be, how do you create emotional resonance in a content strategy?
Yeah, yeah, it's clarity, clarity of purpose, uh, having a clear understanding of what it means to have a positive outcome. The going into psychology, we all live on B.F. Skinner called them strokes, positive or negative strokes, and there are conditional and unconditional positive and negative strokes. And we all prefer positive unconditional strokes. When your wife says she loves you, that's a positive unconditional stroke. That feels good. In sales, they're typically conditional. I did something and it turned out well, and I get that stroke. And that's the emotional fuel that you can perpetuate. You want to get the engine started and keep it running. And that fuel is, okay, your goal for today was this, and you accomplished that goal. Let's celebrate it. You did well, because we know statistically that those are the things that will get you to that top 20% group. And it's, everybody says sales is an art form. Oh, it's art. It is not art. It's science. And I've already proven it 100 times over that there are statistical models that work. And the problem is that CRM doesn't collect any of that data. And without that data, no amount of analytics will do anything. And by the way, text is not data. So any field that's just a text field has no value in terms of analysis. And it's honestly shocking how similar one person to the next, how we behave what motivates us, what what drives us every day. It's fascinating. So you can measure it, you can leverage it, you can get better with it. When I was a trainer for Sandler, I had a young salesperson that I really wanted to help. So we would talk before any significant sales call, and I would give him questions to ask and a strategy, and afterwards we would debrief. And so often he didn't ask the questions. The conversation went in a direction he wasn't prepared for. He didn't stand strong and take control. Uh, and and what I realized is that it's because he might have had some notes, he might have wrote them down, but he didn't practice it. It wasn't his normal every day. This is how I do it.
Yeah.
I'm asking the same questions. I'm doing the same thing. So you're able to separate the emotional side from the mechanical side and not get them tied up in each other.
Well,
Because
it seems like you go back into discipline, right?
yeah,
There was discipline.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
It,
Very good. What's the biggest trend you see in marketing today?
Everybody just wants to do emails. Um, it's the it's the answer to everything. Send an email. And purely on the marketing side, drip marketing, willing recipients of emails, great. Yeah, it's a it's a pipeline for it. Uh, David Sandler used to always say, "Don't spill your candy in the lobby," which means don't give away too much critical information about what you're trying to sell or do before you can get into a real conversation. And that's one of the challenges with emails is oftentimes they spill candy. We all get them, we all read them, but it's hard. There aren't a lot of things you can do with an email without giving away a few things. And I see salespeople making less and less direct connection. And sales is still a personal thing. It's still
Yes.
one-on-one. We have to talk. Cold calling still works as well as it did in the 90s, which is when late 90s when I started the sales organization. It works just as well. It's not changed. People pick up the phone. Maybe some people it's a little harder to find a phone number, but you can get there. But when, when I was, maybe I should say we, uh, I started when there were faxes, and faxes were just emails. They just showed up differently. We all used them, and they worked in certain situations. You used them, but you just like anything, too much is always too much.
Let's go to the next question here. Who would be the people who would most benefit from Prospect Stream today? Who would be an ideal
Uh,
customer?
yeah, that's a good question. Everybody. Let me give you a little bit of background before I answer this question so it makes more sense. So what Prospect Stream is it is a sales process manager. We don't even call it a CRM. And what that means is that you build a sales campaign in the software, assign salespeople and the prospects that are going to be the recipient of this sales effort. And the system manages the whole thing. You also build what we call the guidance, which you can totally script out the entire sales process from beginning to end if you want to do that. And there are reasons you would want to do that, but you build your sales stages, the whole thing. And then the software does all the work. The software's, I think this is the best way to describe how simple it is. Ricardo, I could train you on the software in less than 45 minutes and you'd be an expert. You wouldn't need any additional training uh, to use it. Where when I consulted for Salesforce, we expected it to be 6 months. And at the end of 6 months, if they understood 20% of the software, we were successful. So 45 minutes to 6 months, 100% to 20%. Yeah, you get the point. So what that uh, allows is for non-professional sellers to get a lot better. So, for example, in the medical fields, a lot of nurses, administrators have to be salespeople, and they have to actually get on the phone and call people, whether it's working with hospitals or, uh, for example, nursing care facilities have to sell the family on their facility. And they have no idea what they're doing selling wise. So that's a perfect use case for Prospect Stream. Lawyers have to be salespeople. Anybody that has a profession but also has to do sales. And then on the other side of the spectrum is independent reps. So the software allows you, because they're campaigns, you can have if you're the independent rep, you don't want to give up your book of business. So a company can push a campaign to you and you allot your database that's appropriate for that campaign without giving the company the visibility of what you're doing with your records. It'll show them statistical information, but not the contacts that you're working. Bottom line is we can manage a very complex organization through these campaigns, and it's very simple to do. A sales rep still gets what we call the today list, which is their work plan for the day, and it integrates everything, it optimizes everything for them. So they're still at that 45 minutes, I'm an expert level, but behind the scenes is this very complex structure that's keeping everything separate but together. How about that? So complex organizations do really well with it, all the way to the other side. People that have no idea how to sell uh, makes them very effective, and that's quite frankly where we're focused right now. Is those two segments. The typical company with a typical sales organization, they tend to find us, and it's extremely productive for them. We can triple their sales productivity, their positive outcomes. We can triple their positive outcomes each day
Awesome.
just by deploying the software. So,
Okay, nice. Steve, let's talk about Steve Farfsing himself. Okay. So let's assume that you go to a restaurant and that you're in one of those booths where you cannot see the back, and you hear familiar voices and you hear three of your best friends talking about you. What would you expect them to say about you?
stay away from him. He's only gonna start lecturing them on sales. No,
I'm looking for
I
more of
want
a
them to.
character, of course.
Yeah, I would like them to agree that I made a difference, that I help people out, and have been a positive influence in whatever area it is. That's that is success in my book. You know, um, I mean, wealth and fame, I'm not that interested in. And I started Prospect Stream with the intent of I saw these young salespeople that had so much potential that weren't being successful. I wouldn't say they were failing. I wasn't going to fire them, but they weren't rainmakers. I wanted to help them get there. And I didn't know how to do that.
Yeah.
So
So
I guess that's
how
it.
do you, yep. How do you stay grounded when things get overwhelming? Whether it's on a personal basis or on a professional basis?
Well, I've been through it enough times. I think that just reminding myself that life happens. God has a plan. I just need to stay true to what I believe, and it'll work out. And I look back at my life and see all the stupid things I've done and mistakes I've made, and realize that uh, my higher power, my faith has carried me through. It's been a lot of difficult things that we all face through life, and knowing uh, that the most important thing is being true to what you believe is comforting.
Steve, I have asked this question many times, and you are the first who gives me that answer, which is my answer as well.
Thank
I'm
you.
very happy to hear that. It's that easy. When you
It
really
is.
grab onto God, there's nothing you cannot do. And people, I think, misunderstand the relationship with God, but it is what it is. All right.
Yes.
So let's assume you had the opportunity to whisper in your ear a message when you first started your career. What will you tell yourself?
Yeah, that is a difficult question because I have been a risk taker my whole life. And at different times, it's cost me an enormous amount of money. And on one side, I would say, don't be so quick to jump. But on the other side, I have 8 patents. I've invented a number of things. This software is one of them. And I got my inspiration from those jumps. And I don't know that I should have been more. I actually struggle with that. I still a leaper. I I just go for it.
Well, that's good. So maybe you should have whispered, you can leap and believe. It's okay.
Well, certain people don't want me to take as many leaps. It's we make mistakes. We just have to keep going.
Yes. Yes. Steve, thank you very much for being part of IMS today. It has been a pleasure speaking with you, getting to know you better, really digging into Prospect Stream and understanding how you got to this place. Appreciate your time today and look forward to learning more from you.
Thanks for listening to Insight Marketing Success, where marketing knowledge meets real-world experience from vision to execution.